Hey there, welcome to Business Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Neal Dipentino. Sometimes you feel safe at work in your office and, or wherever you do your job. And sometimes, the workplace environment, is not so good. Maybe it can even become caustic. Our guest helps employers foster culturally competent and serve safe workplaces for their employees. Welcome to our show, Dami. We've had you on before, Dami. Here we go. There you are. Wait, I got the wrong thing. I tell him I just want to hit a button. I hit the wrong button. What am I going to do? Anyway, that's we don't edit any of that out. This is authentic. It's real life stuff. And we tried doing this podcast together a couple weeks ago, and the internet went down in our little neighborhood over here, and so we had to start. We couldn't start over, and you just said, "You know what? I want to do this show," and you came back, and I am so happy that you did. So thank you so much for being with us today, Dami.
Absolutely.
How's things going?
Thanks, Neal. Good. How are you?
I am doing really well. Now you're over in Springfield, Missouri, in the Ozarks out there. Yeah, life good out there?
It's amazing. Life is really good.
And I think I told you that my family's from that region. We also have an office in Lebanon. We have another office in Ozarks. So we're, very familiar with the area for sure. And it is a wonderful area. Great place to grow up and great place to do business. So, but it's funny. It's like I always kind of do like a little geography lesson. It seems like whenever we get things started, but that's not what our show is about. Our show is about talking about what you do and how you help your clients and you. Well, first of all, before we get into that too deeply, you've got a very interesting past. You've been a medical missionary. You still are a medical missionary.
I still am a medical missionary.
I think our audience would be really excited to learn more about Dami. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned me being a medical missionary. That for me is where my journey, where I could say my journey began. I discovered my calling as a medical missionary. I was born and raised in Nigeria, spent 20 years of my life there. And let's just say discovering my purpose as a medical missionary was very much a culmination of my experiences and what I witnessed growing up in Nigeria, and really a God thing. If I'm being honest. And so once I discovered that, I knew exactly where to plant myself in the workforce. And then I entered into the workforce and realized, people just didn't want to be at work. The average worker really just does it because they need to work and that they need to earn an income. And that just broke my heart. And so I said to myself, you've been able to discover yourself. Why not help other people discover themselves? And really, that's where Dami LLC began. And so I always say that if it wasn't for my personal discovery of my calling as a medical missionary, Dami would not exist. Purpose Connect would not exist. Everything that I do, I credit to that, encounter in my own personal life.
Well, fantastic. And today you work with businesses, not only just businesses, you also work with potential employees to help them prepare to find the job that is going to be, a good fit for them culturally, and obviously having a good fit with culture is like super important, but also building a great culture for a company, making it a safe workplace, as you say in your LinkedIn profile. I mean, that's super important. So give me kind of a basic idea of what one of your clients might look like.
Yes. So when I first founded Dami, my clients primarily were people who were either unemployed, in school, really just trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do for work? And so you could say job seekers, but oftentimes my clients aren't even job seekers. They're just people who are trying to discover themselves and trying to figure out what they want to spend their lives doing. And so the majority of my clients end up being job seekers who are either unemployed or transitioning or getting ready to graduate college and trying to enter into the workforce. But that's on the career development side of things. And you mentioned some of the work I do with cultural competency. And so in that aspect, my clients are employers, individuals who are professionals, and they want to gain more exposure and awareness to people who are from different cultures and identities. Those would be my clients. And so I actually lead a cultural competency class about every 6 to 8 weeks, along with 6 other facilitators. And there we teach everything from racial and ethnic backgrounds to disabilities, to multi-generational differences, gender differences. And we teach LGBTQ plus community, just all of the things that make us different, and that could create a barrier in our ability to interact with each other in the workplace. That's really what the focus is for the cultural competency trainings. And so I lead that as well.
Okay. And so, in the workplace in this day and age, just in our lives in general, I mean, we're all different. I mean, there's no cookie cutter anything anymore.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, businesses really need to be aware of our differences and try to create an environment that is welcoming for everyone.
Yes.
If they want to have the right employees, if they want to have,
Yeah.
employees who are going to stay with them for a really long time. So when you're dealing with a business, what kind of things do you teach them, that you share with them to help them to basically facilitate an environment like that?
Yeah, so the first thing that I point out is the reality that communities, businesses don't really develop themselves. Communities don't develop themselves. People develop communities. So even if a business leadership team has a vision for, a safe environment, has a vision for an environment where they can see their people, just wanting to develop relationships together, work together for the greater good. That is one part of it. What really makes it happen is us, is you and I. It's our, conscious and intentional commitment to really leaning to our humanity, leaning to who we are, and to say, you know what, at my core, I want to connect with people. How can I do that? And that's how we develop our community. It starts from us saying, who is out there that I have an opportunity to connect with that I haven't already connected with. And then the business vision can really come together at that point. But if the people aren't willing to move, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of businesses are not willing to move?
I would say businesses are willing. It's just more, again, it's the people even realizing that there's a gap. It's
Right.
the people realizing, I don't know what I don't know, and what do I need to do to
Yeah.
gain the knowledge? What do I need to do to create that awareness for myself so that I'm not waiting until a conflict occurs in order to try to figure out, oh my gosh, how do I communicate with somebody who is from India? Or how do I communicate with somebody who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community? When a conflict has occurred, it makes it 10 times harder, but when you make an intentional effort to connect with people, you're also eliminating the chances of conflict in the workplace because you're already connecting and developing relationship, and the things that will create the misunderstanding to begin with, you're probably already proactively learning.
Right. So what I kind of think I hear you saying is that, conflict is going to occur at some point or another. It's just going to happen. It's just part of nature, I guess,
I mean,
part of
because we're
all.
all different. We're
We're all
going to
different.
misunderstand each other. Yep.
Yeah. So it's all about that preparation and being able
Mm-hmm.
to kind of handle that when it does come up. And sometimes
Yes.
things come up that you're not prepared for. But in most
Yeah.
cases, I would imagine that a lot of the conflicts, a lot of the things that you come across as a business person with your employees, with your people, I mean, it's predictable. You can
Yeah.
know certain things are going to happen, and you just be prepared. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
fantastic. Can you give us maybe a little bit of an example of what your process might look like when you're dealing with? Let's talk about employers. So when you're dealing with an employer and you're helping them to develop that, that safe work environment, that culture that nurtures people, what does that look like? What is your procedure for that? Your process?
So as I mentioned, we take the approach when I first started this work, cultural competency work, my focus was the racial and ethnic backgrounds. And that was very much because that was my background and that was my expertise. And so I focused on that. And then I started to bring other people to collaborate with. But the big thing that we try to do is we shift from trying to change a person's mindset to here's what you simply need to know, about this person who's different. So we do a lot of role playing. I actually write a lot of scripts, and I would assign our class participants, and I say, you're acting as South African, you're acting as Indian, you're acting as Vietnamese, or, I give them all of this identities that that's not theirs. And I say, have a conversation with somebody else who's acting as something different so that they can see where a lot of those miscommunication happens. And a good example would be in my culture, I'm Nigerian. In my culture, making eye contact is an indication of disrespect. When
Really,
you
I didn't
come
know that.
into the American culture, exactly. When you come into the American culture, in fact, I didn't even know that was a negative in America to avoid eye contact until I lived in America for so many years. By the time I realized, by the time somebody said in America, it's used as a measure of transparency and confidence and all that good stuff. So
Wow.
all the while, I've probably had people label me as, oh, maybe she's not confident, or maybe she's not being honest, in her dealings because I'm avoiding eye contact. And what I'm really trying not to do is be disrespectful, right?
Wow.
So how do two people who have never encountered each other, how do they walk into new conversations with each other having that knowledge and awareness that this is what this thing means to this other person? So you could see how those miscommunication would happen in the workplace. And what employers are doing is we want the representation. We want to be able to say we've got all these people in the workforce, but what we're really creating is a multicultural chaos, what I call the multicultural chaos. You know, it's we know you've never encountered a Nigerian, but hey, here's your new coworker. Figure out how to work together, even though you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
Right. And so that's where, we really start with employers and their teams, and just professionals in general to say, or do you have a desire to develop your professional relationships better, especially with the people that you wouldn't normally, if you walked into a room, if you're attending a networking event and you saw two people and you only know one of those people, our natural instinct is to walk towards the person that we know, not the person that we don't know.
Hmm.
We go say hello to the person that we know because that's who we know and that's who we're comfortable with, right? What is the thing that prepares us to walk up to that person that we don't know with the information that's going to help that conversation go a lot, better than it normally would?
Hmm. I would have never guessed that. I would like, it's amazing to me that, yeah, I mean, I'm probably of the people who would think that, the eye contact thing would be disrespectful. you know.
Mhm.
And but I never knew that was a cultural thing. I
Yeah.
do now. Well, when you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm sorry, But
I
so
mean, and it took me a while to learn that, and
yeah,
so you could see how 6 months down the line, that employee who maybe is different from the majority can start to feel like, it looks like people don't really get me here.
yeah,
Maybe I
yeah,
don't fit in this place. And then 6 months down the line, they leave the organization, they exit, and you're wondering, why did we lose that employee?
yeah,
What
yeah.
happened there? But no one's really able to figure out the stuff that goes unnoticed.
Right, right. Well, so let me ask you this. So, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to stick with the eye contact thing because I've heard everything you said, and I've got other questions, but this one just kind of stuck in my mind. So, you're dealing with an employee, you're dealing with a job seeker or a person who is trying to, you know, work their way into the community or whatever the case might be for that individual. Um, so their customs from where they came from were not to have eye contact, and but here we want the eye contact.
Yeah.
So somewhere it's got to give. Is there like a
Yep.
kind of like kind of a medium type thing there where sometimes you look, sometimes you don't? Or I mean, who has to change?
So the key word is not it's not change, it's awareness.
Uh huh.
It's knowing that at least one of both parties. Sometimes in most cases you don't really have either of the parties who know what's happening, right? But in the event that at least one of them does, that person who knows then is obliged to say, I understand this better. I am
Hmm.
willing to allow for a different, a different approach than I'm used to, than I
Right.
know. Because now they're the ones coming into the conversation with that awareness, right? And now, if both parties were aware, let's assume both parties were aware, that's even better because they're
Sure.
both coming in, and one person is maybe saying, oh my gosh, I have to make eye contact. And this person is trying to avoid eye contact. And maybe they both catch themselves and realize, what is going on here? Did are you aware of this? Was that something that you knew? And right there, you've already opened the door for understanding because you suddenly realize this person was walking into this conversation with you with a consciousness of who you are and not so much what they want and what works for them.
I love that. I think that's incredible. I really do. That's awesome. So, in working with your businesses and everything, so obviously, are you working with leaders? Who in general do you approach whenever you're talking about this with?
I start with the leaders, because if the leaders can get it, then it's so much easier to open it up to the rest of their workforce.
Right.
So the majority of who has taken, I've had a few who aren't, they don't really have a leadership title, but they've taken the class because their leader took the class and then decided to enroll their team as well. But I've typically started with the leaders and then it kind of trickles down from there.
So, Demi, are you so these are all courses that you provide, or do you actually do one-on-one with leadership as well?
No, well, I do have a leadership program that's not cultural competency focus.
Uh huh.
But on the cultural competency side of things, it's an in-person full day class, and we have it about every 6 to 8 weeks. And the next one's actually November 21st.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So obviously, I love what you're doing. I think you have a great program, and this is just, I mean, so much information. Tell me a little bit about. You talked a little bit about the process and what you do. What kind of results are you seeing from your courses with the people that you teach this course to, and then your processes too?
It's it's two things. First, it's that initial realization that, how I view and perceive others is not necessarily how it always is. And that this is based on feedback from people who have taken the class who have said, my goodness, I would have never thought about this. And it's that newfound like openness to engage with people from a place of curiosity, right? And so that's the first part of it. I had one person who, during the class, I have them research. And so I assigned them, I asked them to select the country that they want to research. And this person selected Nepal. And she discovered that in Nepal, that the Nepalese don't have any problem disclosing how much they make. And they would, just tell it in the open. You can see how awkward that gets, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a conversation, and somebody tells you how much they make. And if they're your coworker, you're wondering, what am I supposed to do with this information? Peradventure, they earn more or less. It brings up that conversation for why. There's so much that could happen just from that information being released. But yet, in that culture, that's normal for them to reveal that type of information. So what that person said was, it almost challenges like what we know about human resources and like the rules and all that stuff around HR, because now you're realizing that HR it hasn't taken into consideration the variation of cultures and behaviors and all of those things. But we just have those rules saying, oh, this is what you should not do. And so it's also leading the HR leaders to now begin to evaluate their own policies and their own, guidelines and all that stuff. And now they're evaluating those things because the cultural, variable now has been introduced, which they wouldn't normally think about.
Well, I got to tell you, you're blowing my mind. This is really incredible. I appreciate everything that you've said. Look, we're getting very close to the end of our show here today, and I've really enjoyed you as a guest. Is there any parting comments you'd like to make? Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with?
My final word, and those who know me would probably, they know that this is my default place. It's no matter what it is that you believe, that I believe as a human being, there's always a different perspective. There's always a different experience that other people come with. And so just be open to it. And the other part of that is a big thing that I've been really pushing amongst our Southwest Missouri workforce is vulnerability. It's don't be afraid to be vulnerable, to get it wrong, to be corrected when you get it wrong, because vulnerability is really what opens the opportunity for us to grow as a people, to connect with other people, and then to develop, authentic relationships with people. So it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to not know. It's okay to, be corrected, and then to take that correction and to use that as a tool to enhance that relationship that you're faced with, that you're experiencing.
That's how we learn from our mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yep. Wonderful. So, Dami, if somebody wanted to enlist your services, take your course, or just get in contact and have a conversation with you, how would they go about doing that?
They can go to damicc.us. So DAMICC.us.
Outstanding. Well, Dami, thanks again. I appreciate you being on the show. And folks, that's all we have for today. So thrilled that you could be with us. Business Breakthroughs is sponsored by Titan Media Works. Check us out at titanmediaworks.com. That's Works, WORX. And also check out our other great hosts on the Small Business Delivered Network at smallbusinessdelivered.com. Hey, until next time, appreciate you being here. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks, Neal.